How do you fit in with your team? How do you fit in with people around you? Or do you belong? And what do you give up when you're trying to fit in?
In today's episode, we discuss our take on pursuit of authentic self based on our experience and thoughts. Welcome to the Imperfect Clinician. Hello, welcome to Imperfect Clinician. Today we're going to talk about authentic self. Authentic self is quite a broad idea of self-recognition in a way. But first, I think it's important to talk about fitting in and belonging. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for us to be able to be or access our authentic self, we need to see where we are on a personal level and on a professional level, whether we are fitting in that environment or whether we have a sense of belonging.
Okay, so tell me more about what is the difference? What is it? The same thing? How would you define fitting in? How would you define belonging?
So the best definition of fitting in belonging that I've heard is from Brene Brown. She mentioned that when you fit in, you take away some part of you in order to fit in because you want to be like everybody else. So you can't be completely yourself. And when you have a sense of belonging, you are with a group of people and you respect each other's differences and you can fully celebrate who you are as a person. So I think to give some personal example will make it more relatable to people who are listening. So for me, when I was working in the UK, it took me a very long while to have the confidence, to have the pride in talking about my own culture, celebrating Chinese New Year. So this year is the first time I talked about Chinese New Year to everyone that I spoke to in a work setting. So previously, I've always done it in a personal setting, but never in a work setting to the level where I got lanterns to decorate people's room, offices, and the rest of it. And it took me a very long while to do that because I was trying to be like everybody else whilst orphaning a part of myself. So with me being an immigrant with different culture, I think a lot of it is when I care about the perception of others at the expense of myself.
Okay, so do you think that fitting in is a reaction to something, or do you think it's how we propose ourselves to others, trying not to invade others' borders or what others consider as a normal thing around them?
So I think we do the fitting in as a form of protection. So we do that because we don't know how safe it is in the workplace. We're going in to assess how people are, how is the culture. So there is this great TED talk by Jodie Ann Burry about why you should not bring your authentic self to work. And in there, she talk about the reason why you shouldn't bring it to work and the key thing is, especially at the start, is because when you don't understand the culture at work and you just go in without any observation in place, you risk exclusion, you risk bullying, you risk racism, you risk
being different,
being different, and you risk being
and difference can be ostracized.
Yeah.
Well, but is it always a bad thing to try to fit in? Because I've got this experience that when I moved to UK, I really wanted to embrace and celebrate where I live, and I wanted to find out what it's like to live here. So in order to recognize people's behaviors, clues, what people talk about, it's, I think, good to try to understand it. I mean, I don't think that on all levels fitting in, belonging can like exclude itself. But what am I trying to say is that it's not always a bad thing trying to fit in, because you tend to learn more about the culture, about people, about everyday life, and basically what makes people tick in general. And what people care about is how you try to understand the surroundings around you.
You do that when you have a sense of belonging as well. The difference between the both is not when you don't observe people. The difference is you observe, but how you have to carry yourself. How do you bring in your culture, your differences safely for you into this workplace? And so fitting in is the observing, trying to be part of the group. But in order to be part of the group, you have to take away a part of yourself that's really important to you. And the thing with belonging is you still observe, because we have to observe everybody for social setting, even for personal setting. We have to observe how people react. But in that context of belonging, you don't have to take away any part of yourself, because all parts of you are celebrated and encouraged.
So is it a phase then, fitting in, until you feel safe where you can feel truly that you belong? Because if you all of a sudden try to impose whatever your own routines are, your own sort of, maybe, I don't know, all of a sudden you start bringing your own, I don't know, food that's not every day. Everybody's eating sandwiches, and you bring out something else, and all of a
I think
sudden
the fact that you're using imposing shows that you're so afraid of other people's perception.
No, because the thing is, if you march into a group of people around you, whether it's at work or not, wherever it is in the world, I'm not saying even for marching, you're sort of selling yourself in a way as, right, this is what I am and all that this is, and I demand to belong in here. Because
I don't think you can demand to belong in there. You have to feel safe to have that sense of belonging.
Yeah, and this is what I'm trying to get to, that fitting in might be considered as a little phase, like you try to recognize what it's like. So yes, you
I
give a little bit of
disagree,
yourself.
because if fitting in is equivalent to removing a part of yourself, we need to create a sense of belonging at work, because you are still observing everybody, but your role as a clinician, your role as a leader, is to create that environment where differences are encouraged and observed. So I'll give you the example. When I started work, I would talk to others about Christmas, Easter, the thing that they would celebrate. I would not mention about Chinese New Year at all.
Okay.
From my own insecurities, and I don't feel safe enough to talk about it. And with more confidence from both the professional and personal level, I got to the point where I am proud of the culture and I feel brave enough to say it to other people. And when I mentioned it to other people, they were surprised. And also, they were apologizing for not realizing that I've got a different culture. So now, when I am at work, when I see people bringing in different culture, I would actively ask them about their belief. What do they celebrate differently? I would encourage diversity in food, diversity in what they're celebrating, what the family is like, family dynamics, and a lot of other things. And this is something that you can do at the start by creating a culture that promote a sense of belonging.
And I absolutely agree that we should encourage and ensure that people are welcome. And I don't think that anybody should feel estranged because of who they are and where they come from, no matter whether they are, from different cultures or not. I just believe that it really adds value to have people from different backgrounds, from different upbringing, from different perspective of the world, because that can just close the barriers and the gaps between people. And even if you have people from different cultures, there's nothing against feeling that's absolutely, in my opinion, to be encouraged to feel both British and, I don't know, wherever you're from, Asian, African, Eastern European, American. I think that doesn't exclude itself.
I think not a lot of the time, so not every single time, the exclusion it's from a malicious intent.
I agree.
It's because it comes from reactiveness. So they will be, because there will be systemic biases, there will be systemic racism, and a few other things in terms of exclusion.
We are judgmental to some respect.
However, the difference with us as clinicians, as leaders, is we have to proactively promote, proactively champion this type of culture. And I'm aware that a lot of people don't feel that they have the power to, first of all, empower themselves, and second of all, have difference to change the culture in the workplace.
That is a very hard and very big job to change the culture if there are no people, because it's people, not the systems, because all companies now talk about diversity, talk about tolerance and everything else, but it's the people actually and their attitude to others that is or could potentially be greatest barrier. And I think there is great responsibility on all the leaders, managers, clinicians to encourage diversity.
I disagree. I think it's both people and system, because system has to hold people accountable, and system will provide you the data, and leaders have to proactively do that, and system will provide you a reflection of how you're doing now and how you can do better and compare it with everybody else. I think it's both system and people, just like what James Clear said. You don't, along the line of, you don't rise to the loftiest of your goal, you fall to the level of your systems.
That's true. And I absolutely think that systems are absolutely necessary for that, because they provide like a framework for everybody else, but it's the people that make the systems alive. If you have just the systems and people are not embracing it, then there is a breakdown. And if you have just people who want to change the culture and there is no system to support it, that can break down as well. So this is both systems and people's job to ensure that everybody is welcome and can feel better as themselves.
I agree. So, Mike, I wonder what's your experience in your own personal story in fitting in and belonging?
Well, when I came to UK, everything was new or different to what you read or watched before coming to the UK. And so you're trying to learn, watch people to see where are the common grounds and what are the differences. So you learn how people celebrate Christmas. So you learn how people go about everyday conversation. Talking about weather in UK, it's absolutely top of the pops when it comes to trying to find like-minded people or trying to find the common ground to start with the conversation. And that's something relatively new. So when you learn that, you feel like you start to fit in. When you're discussing people's everyday habits, how people go about organizing their lives. I had a big help from a good book that a friend of mine dropped into my list of books to read. That was Kate Fox's Watching the English: The Hidden Rules of English Behavior, which well, she's an anthropologist talking about here UK or British in general culture, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't quite grasp, and it's quite difficult if you don't grow up to recognize the same, I don't know, songs. There's
Nuances.
so those nuances, those tiny bits that people know because they've been watching the same TV programs for many, many years. And I really like living in the UK, and I really want to embrace it. So I watched a lot, I read a lot, and I wasn't a complete stranger to UK because I grew up on watching and listening and reading a lot of UK films, books, and whatever. But later, you start realizing that, right, here, the Christmas is very traditional. In most homes, you have set routine for the day, which is not as I remember it back at home. Because back at home, the more significance for the family has the Christmas Eve. I always used to love that in Poland we like to celebrate things before they happen. So just the kind of Christmas Eve was more important than the actual Christmas usually, as the family gathering, as a union of people who spend time, who make effort to spend time together on that special day. And Christmas was sort of after party in a way.
So, how is it different for you in Poland celebrating Christmas Eve in terms of the details of the culture? I think it will be interesting for people to listen to.
Well, you look out for the first star to sit down for the meal. And the meal is very traditionally meat free. And there are meant to be 12 courses, and people make a lot of effort. There are special things that you eat only during Christmas Eve, okay? And you share the bread between people to when you wish each other, all the best and luck and best wishes. You do it personally, eye to eye, and you celebrate the meeting, the gathering, and the opportunity that that comes every year. It's very, very personal, very charming. You sit around, again, Christmas tree. You still have presents. In Poland, the presents are being open after Christmas Eve's meal. Here in UK, they're open on the first day of Christmas after the kids wake up. And that's the difference. And this is one of the things that I adopted in a way from the UK, because it's better for kids to have a good sleep before they open the presents. So I think we decided that
We started doing both, so we
we
got
started to.
enough presents for actually Christmas Eve to retain some of the culture and some of the presents on Christmas morning.
Yeah, but because we don't flood the children with too many presents, we want to make sure that they appreciate the presents rather than are flooded with bags of them. But nonetheless, I think that by trying to understand how people celebrate special occasions here in the UK, you get the understanding of where is the importance. And after a while, when you feel safe or comfortable, you want also to share what's important for yourself. And this is how you open up. This is how you become more authentic. This is how you try to celebrate both, because there's nothing stopping celebrating both.
So I wonder what is the fear that's driving the decision of not mentioning Christmas Eve before you feel confident or safe?
I think it's I think it's the fear of being set as an outcast, as somebody who can't fit in, or maybe even to some extent who doesn't respect local things, local customs, local celebrations, and wants to override everything with their own ideas that they bring from elsewhere. And I think there is place for everything, for celebration of all different cultures, holidays, um, conversations even. And I'm pretty sure that by making a lot of space for others to express themselves, because even within, between people of the same culture, they have got slightly different habits, routines, customs that they follow, and that makes people unique. And I think that that should be celebrated, and we should learn one from another what makes special value or importance to us.
No, I agree. Thank you for sharing the story, because people who are listening will have some part of themselves that they might not feel comfortable in sharing yet, or they have gone through the part where they've taken the courage to share, and it made them feel, for me, made me felt liberated.
Yeah, I think that it allows you to feel more welcome if you have an opportunity to share what you stand for, what you like, what you enjoy, or what is the tradition. I'm not particularly fanatic about obeying all the traditions as they meant to be for hundreds of years, because that's not how they progress. I'm more keen to create new traditions that are sort of evolving from old. That's what we had to do. I mean, in our household, we have a mixture of cultures, and I think that this just adds to the value. There is nothing stopping us celebrating both Christmas and New Year and Chinese New Year or any other holiday. I'm very happy to engage with any. No, oh, there's also in Poland we do celebrate Names Days, which is like your patron's day in a way. Everybody has time in a year where you can check on calendar whose name's day it is, and it's more of like an open celebration, whereas the birthday is more for the family.
So explain, what is Patrons Day for those who don't understand?
Well, it's your name comes usually was given traditionally. I'm talking, generations ago by your parents, based on patrons of usually somebody saint or somebody that has got some space in history. And yeah.
And so your birthday and your name's day are in different months.
Oh yeah, they usually are. Well, it doesn't have to be. It's not a rule or anything. But you absolutely are. My name's day is in September, and there's another reason to celebrate. I mean, I don't do anything particular to dress as Mike or whatever, but it's just another way of saying, right, yeah, why can't we have a cake or a glass of wine?
I think it's really interesting because we are celebrating this with the children, and when they speak to other Polish people with the same name, they'll go, "Oh yeah, we have the same name's day," for example, and it's a sense of connection. It's a starting point for conversation as well, perhaps.
Absolutely. So I think we've covered quite a bit about fitting in and belonging. And I think it would be a good moment to talk about belonging at work. What value does it bring for you as a clinician? To have a team where the fitting in is only part of welcoming people, and where you allow people to be themselves and to feel like they belong.
I think having a sense of belonging is something much deeper. I read somewhere that when people are saying, I want to remove racism, I want to remove microaggression, I want to remove bullying, it's good to have actions to remove all of that. And something a bit deeper is to actually create a sense of belonging for everybody in the team. And I think to create that, we mentioned about proactively encouraging people to open up about themselves as a leader, to embrace vulnerability, like we mentioned in our previous episode, and address our fear so we can show to other people, let's say in my team, when if I'm the lead, I have more power. So what I am doing is embrace my vulnerability, and it's not power over, it's power with. So I am giving them the power to empower them to open up about themselves once they feel safe. And I am modeling that on a day to day example. And it can be directly connected to me, it can be indirect, because what I find is when I am able to access my authentic self, I'm able to then speak to other people with a different level of confidence and create a safe environment. So I've been in my workplace for quite some time, and only recently I knew about somebody else having a different culture that they're celebrating, but they've not mentioned ever in the workplace. And because I was celebrating Chinese New Year, that started a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, it was, oh, actually, seeing you doing that, it makes me feel that I can do that with mine too. And we agreed to celebrate her culture together next time. And even if it's two, you feel you make the other person feel less alone.
I think it's even more important because it just stresses that we want to embrace all the cultures that we live in. I mean, where we come from, where we are, or maybe where we're going. And that, I think it's important that they do not exclude themselves. I don't.
When you say they, who do you mean?
They, in terms of the cultures. So, if you are British and Polish, you don't have to be. You don't have to take away your Polishness,
Yep.
so to speak, to become celebrating the British things. And I think that they all go hand in hand because you are who you are and you cannot separate those things. Even if you are British and you have another British person that's your neighbor, you will be slightly different. You may have longer history of living here, but you will be different people. And I think it would encourage people to start showing what matters for them and what makes them safe, because that's going to affect how they feel about themselves at work and also at home.
And when you ask me the question about how it's going to impact work, I think when you have a sense of belonging at work, we spend quite a large amount of our life at work. And I think if you actually have a positive culture instead of a toxic culture, you would go to work feeling like you are sharing the vision. You understand the purpose of the company, you understand the purpose of the team that you're working with. And because you have the psychological safety, it allows you to make mistakes and learn from it. Not mistakes from a clinical perspective where you are harming people's life, but from the perspective of I'm being creative with ideas to look at how do we change system, speak to other people and be brave enough to get feedback because we can't get it right all the time.
True.
And so I noticed that when I do that, every single person in the team gives more than I asked for because I didn't ask for anything. I created that sense of belonging. in the team, and because everyone felt safe, we are open to changes. We're not resistant to change. We share a common purpose. We are creative. We are adaptable. And all of that people are looking for at work can be done if we look deeper instead of focusing on the performance part of it. We need to look at the emotional part of it, like we mentioned in our previous episodes.
It's all going back to analog skills.
Yes, we are emotional creatures. And so if we feel safe, if we feel strong, if we feel protected, we are able to stretch ourselves more without being overstretched because we have the support around us. Not just one-to-one support, but peer support, the network support.
For me, it's when we're talking about feeling safe to become more open and to feel like you belong, it is a direct translation to how your idea of family life should be. Because where do you feel, or where you want to feel safest? Within your family. And that's translating it to the work. It creates people more extended family. And this is the value, that safety is one of the greatest and underappreciated values that we often take for granted, or something that we can't find. This is where many anxiety issues arise, and this is what we want to work on. But now, going forward, we talked a lot about fitting in and belonging between others. So feeling authentic on the outside to others, being authentic on the outside. So how about feeling authentic for ourselves? What is true us for ourselves?
I think being authentic is equivalent to feeling authentic because you can't exclude one from another. Because when you have, so it's three balance that you're trying to do. One, you're trying to feel that you belong in a group. Second, you want to be authentically yourself. And third, you want to be connected to other people. And so being authentic to yourself would make you feel that you can do more things because you have less fear driving you, or the fear are being addressed and dealt with. Because the fears, I don't think for me, will ever go away. It's how I'm able to identify the fear and how I'm able to manage it, or how I can decide how long they are affecting me for and how much. And so when I'm able to access my authentic self and for me to be my authentic self, the fears are addressed and managed. And I feel that I am able to move forward with what I want to do on a professional level for myself, and also professional level around the people that I speak to, clinicians, patients, and on a personal level, my role as a mum, as a daughter.
So bearing that in mind, where is the conflict, or is there a conflict between being authentic to yourself and to others?
What do you mean being authentic to others?
Because you can feel like, right, I am true, honest with myself. I do things the way I like it. And then you go to spend time with others at work, friends, and you fit in, and
then that's not
authentic.
Yeah, then you're not being authentic when you're at work. You are fitting in, or whether it's at work or socially. So it's when you are being your authentic self. This is in all settings. When you have separate settings where when you go socially, you switch off this part of yourself. That's fitting in. That's not authentic self at all.
Can we have different authentic selves?
What do you mean?
Well, you can have, well, I don't know. This is just a supposition. So you can have feel comfortable as at home as, I don't know, part of subculture or something that you can identify with, and then at work completely, have a different side to yourself, be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Then you're not really accessing authentic self, because the version of you at home, whether you're alone or whether you're a family, it's a place of safety, and so that's who you are. But if you're not able to access who you are in any other setting, those are the settings where you're trying to fit in. Some people might not even fit in at home, depending on the safety of
That's
it.
the thing. This is why families grow apart, because people cannot be themselves at homes very often. They look for luck elsewhere. How do we notice change? That we become more aware of ourselves and becoming more authentic? Is it through knowing yourself, or is it about showing what you know already to the others?
Both. So the first thing where you say knowing yourself, I think without knowing your triggers, what we talked about, shame and guilt and fears, you're not able to identify the defensiveness that's in place that stops you from accessing your authentic self, your truer self, where you can be who you are, cultures, flaws, and everything, without the fear of judgment, the fear of, like you said, ostracized, the fear of not belonging, worried about other people's perception.
So, is there an impact of how people see us onto our behavior, changing our authentic self? I'm assuming that people you come across have an impact on you, and I believe that there's got to be some sort of change onto of your authentic self. But where is the strength in giving in or staying true to yourself? Or is it a matter of, I don't know, personal compass? You learn something new that's better what you already know, and then you become better authentic self?
I think, first of all, we have to understand the perception of others started when we're very young. So I'll give the example of because I'm the eldest daughter, I've always been given the role of, you are the most responsible one. You need to take care of X, Y, and Z. This is your responsibility. This is what you need to do. You need to be a role model. And this stuck throughout. And that became how I saw my self worth. So if I'm caring for others, if I'm helping to reduce the burden, that is how I prove my worth, my existence. And so I do that all throughout growing up, in university, and still trying to do that unconsciously, because that has become my defensive skill. If I'm saying yes, if I'm a people pleaser all the time, one of the shame reaction that we discussed in our previous episode, if I'm saying yes to questions that are being asked at me, I will take on the burden even though I am close to burning out. When I do that, and when I'm not aware of it, I am not able to, first of all, set boundaries. Second of all, be strong enough to say to others, no, I need the space to recover. I need time. I need whatever it is. And when I'm not able to do that, I'm not able to access my authentic self. And so I am expecting, so from what I can see for myself, authentic self is when I feel strong physically, mentally, because I have boundaries for the things that energizes me.
Yeah, so what you're saying is basically it is being authentic self, especially around others, is more than just feeling safe around others. It's just self empowerment that allows you to do things in a way that you find most appropriate or most beneficial to others, yourself, Anyway, so it's not just the safety. The safety is like a base for it, because you can say, right, I feel I belong. For me, belonging now, based on our discussion, is more than just feeling safe around others.
Yes, because the feeling safe is the first step. There are other things that needs to be in place for other people. Like we talked about the vulnerability, the proactiveness, and a few other things that give other people and myself that I belong and I can say what I want. So I found this quote that I think really great in summarizing what we said. So it's from Mary Brewer, Optimal Distinctiveness Theory. So she said individuals strive to maintain a balance between the need to be assimilated by groups to which they belong, need to connect to friends and loved ones, and need for autonomy and differentiation. And so it's all of these balls that we have to juggle really. This has to come hand in hand with everything that we talked about so far.
So that pops up the question in my head: how authentic can we be in our families? So we see sometimes young people that have different armors described by parents and their environment or teachers or others in a completely different way. So you are a different person with your parents, and you are, I don't know, slightly different or very different in front of your friends. This is how parents find out, oh, is my son in trouble? I will never believe in it. Because I have a feeling from my own personal perception that my dad never really knew me. I thought that I have a little bit there was a little bit more to me than my dad thought. So was he thinking about me in a way that would fulfill his idea of me, or was he accepting me for who I really was? So that prompts me to a discussion that us as parents, as leaders or clinicians, we need this additional effort to provide the environment for others to promote authenticity. Or we otherwise the alternative that we create a matrix around us based on our preconceptions and some sort of prejudices and desires of what the world around us should look like.
So you mentioned that your dad did not know you and you were able to access your authentic self around friends. I'm wondering, did you feel safe to be able to talk about your thoughts, your worries with your dad?
I don't think I felt safe because I thought that if I'm going to show my true authentic self, that would be used against me.
Yeah, so emotionally unsafe.
Yeah, so that was emotionally lack of feeling that I can. I thought that it would put me in a vulnerable position in the future. And if something went wrong in the area of, for example, studying, my authentic self, say, for example, that I play instrument in a band or whatever, that would be used as the reason for my failure. So me, myself, I am to blame for what's gone wrong.
And so when you talk about the vulnerability, then is it for you to find it hard to embrace your vulnerability with your dad? Is it partially because he was not able to embrace his own vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I think that admitting that you could be vulnerable is not something that in my dad's head was in the realm of being a good father. And that was a barrier to for him to be vulnerable in front of others, especially the family.
And so I want to just very quickly mention about vulnerabilities here for people who's just joined us for today. And if you haven't heard our previous episodes, go back. What I wanted to say is that vulnerability, for your dad to show vulnerability, would it be along the line of, I'm sorry I said this to you, I'm sorry I made you feel this way? So I wonder, when you talk about your vulnerability being used as a point of attack for you, based on what you're sharing, it's something that you've experienced before. And I was wondering, how would it make you feel if your dad was able to share his vulnerabilities?
I think sharing vulnerability is definitely affecting the distance between people. And I think that it would allow greater understanding, not only, role of parent and child, but also as a person. When you are vulnerable, especially towards others and those that are your loved ones, it allows them to reflect on themselves. And if you start doing it early enough, your connection will be of immense value. I have a feeling that sometimes I felt that my dad's living, and I think to some extent a lot of parents do. They live in a certain matrix of living by the ideals of the children, of the idea of them, rather than accepting who they are. That's why they think, oh, my child is more, I don't know, is very good at maths because I was good at maths and I'm sure they're going to be good at maths. And you just faking the reality if they're not good at maths. And you just fulfilling your own dreams through your child. And you say, always wanted to ride horses. So that's what you're going to push for your children. I mean, we spoke to a lady that says, yeah, this is fulfilling my dream because I always wanted to be on horses. So now the child wasn't particularly pleased to be on a horse, but was still not forced, yeah, but
Encouraged.
encouraged,
You
shall we
know,
say.
that thing about maths, that was exactly what my mom said to me.
Well, there you go. See? Well, and I think the matrix that the parents create around them, and this is in a direct analogy to the movie, where you sort of live in a world that you created not only for yourself, but also for others. I think it comes out from lack of listening and lack of interest in the true, authentic children. I believe that you have to trust your children a little bit, and then they're going to come back to you trusting you. And I think how we are perceived by our parents later affects how confident we are dealing with others, how quickly we can find safety amongst others, and how quickly we can show our true, authentic selves to others.
And I wonder now, reflecting as parents, is there not a lot of it driven by fear? I need you to, in essence, I'm worried that you're not good at something. And what if you can't succeed? Or what if you can't do what you want to do? What if society perceived you as not good enough?
This is the thing, the perception of society can really mess your life up.
Yes, but
and I think, but this is the fear is the driver for improvement. The thing is how forceful this improvement is going to be, or how convincing you're going to be to your child or even people in your team. Because if you're leading a team, you want them to move forward, and sometimes it can taint the picture of the true ability of the team if you feel that they are more competent or more knowledgeable or faster in doing things. And that's where frustration and the disconnection of the leader can appear. And this will create the barrier, and this will create the disconnection between the ambition of the leader and ability of the team. because you will be detached then.
Can't agree more.
And I also think that what should put together the leaders and teams is the purpose of the work that they're doing together, they're working on, rather than the outcome. Because we're probably going to come back to it when we're talking about the teams and leadership part of the equation in our team interaction. But the purpose, why we're doing things, is important than actual outcome. Outcome should be a byproduct. It should be a derivative, and
not an end goal.
Not something that we go for, not that we focus on. Because if you deliver things for the right reason, you will succeed. If you at least in agreement with your authentic self and authentic self of the whole team. And I think we're going to leave it at that. Well, tell us what your thoughts are. These are just our ideas of what we think that maybe we have no patent on being right. So this is how I
think this, a lot of it, at least for me, is lived experience. So I'm hoping that when I am sharing my stories, it creates some resonance with some of you that are listening. And I hope that you can relate, reflect, and rise. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Until next time. It's been
Ewan
and Mike, and you have been listening to the Imperfect Clinician podcast.
You can follow the Imperfect Clinician on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You will find all the information about our episodes on our website, theimperfectclinician.com, where you can join the discussion by leaving us a voicemail or comment.
If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen to it. Recommend the podcast to one person that will benefit from it. Join us next week for another conversation. Thank you for listening.